to Robin Spencer, Chief Operating Officer of Faraday. Robin, first off, thank you for being here at LeadsCon. Thank you for doing this. You've been to LeadsCon before, and this is my first LeadsCon.
Cool.
How have you enjoyed the show this year, and what's so great about LeadsCon, and why do you keep coming back as well?
It's funny, I love LeadsCon mostly because it marks the time I've been at Faraday. So
okay, wow,
I joined Faraday a couple of weeks before LeadsCon 3 years ago. So this is my third LeadsCon. And I remember coming and being like, wow, this is like a whole family. This is like a family reunion. Yep. And coming in third LeadsCon now, seeing people that I've seen before, so many hugs, so many different things. We're like, oh my God, I'm part of the family. So we've had a lot of fun.
Yes.
And for us as kind of a group that's the context layer data that sits really between lead sellers and lead buyers, I'm finding more and more what excites me about this year. I think the energy is so high for being able to have even more conversations around how do we, at the end of the day, help the end consumer, the person that we actually want to help kind of get connected to the best products, whatever it is that they are trying to get, health insurance, a car, home remodeling, whatever it is. And that conversation feels like it's coming through more and more.
Yeah, and you obviously the conversation right now, I mean, you were on the panel earlier today, the future state of the industry and balancing AI and the human touch. And that's something that a lot of people are using AI to optimize everything. But how do we, in such a human-based industry, how do we balance that? So for you, what are the signals and shifts you're seeing for the future? And what is your idea of where the industry is trending?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I mean, first, I have been surprised by how much is still so manual.
Yeah.
Of so much of the process, I think, between determining who is a really good lead and who is not, and this conversation that lead sellers and lead buyers have. On the first panel, we were talking about sentiment of lead buyers being low.
Yeah.
But lead sellers feeling like it was a great year.
Exactly,
and being like, okay, there's a mismatch there.
100%.
And I think, and of course I'm the data person, but I'm like, I believe data plays a role in terms of helping neutralize or kind of have a more equalized conversation there of if you have information about which leads are converting and which are not, and you're able to pass those back to lead sellers, I think you can have a much better conversation than if just lead sellers are telling you, these are all great leads.
Yeah.
And I think that makes for a really interesting moment in the industry, because then you layer on AI and being able to say, here's all the data. We're going to get you the context on all of these leads. And then these are all the cool ways you can automate that.
Yep.
I think it's in that order, though. And I think oftentimes we get a little bit cart before the horse.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when people hear the word optimize, I feel like the structure and the foundation in place to optimize isn't necessarily thought of.
Exactly. Yes. I think so many times, I was just talking to somebody who I've talked to many years, and she's like, we just aren't ready for a lead score. And I'm like, my thinking has evolved too.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about the lead score. Sometimes you just need context about a lead.
Exactly.
And that isn't about what is their exact score. Are they exactly ready to buy? It's more, Robin Spencer is a lead. Who is she? What does she want? What is she looking for? And can we match her with the right products, et cetera? And we have all that context about Robin Spencer as the consumer.
100%.
And I think if a seller can have that, if a lead buyer can have that, if everybody can kind of work from the same context layer, so much gets easier. And I think that's where, humans plus data plus AI becomes like a very cool combination.
And it could really help with the efficiency, as well as, people think about what's the scale of this? What are my capabilities? But no, let's make sure it's efficient and make sure it's accurate first from both the buyer and the seller's perspective. So obviously, again, like you said, you've been here 3 times, your third LeadsCon. How do you think an event like this, and what ways are you telling Faraday's story, whether it be at the panels, whether it be in conversations? What is the main message you're trying to get through to people who might be on the consumer side, might be on the buyer side, the sell side? How are you telling Faraday's story?
A couple of ways. At our core, we are all about understanding consumers better.
Yeah.
And I think there's 3 steps to it that everybody needs to be following in 2026. And it tells part of Faraday's story, which is you first need to understand who your best customers are.
100%. Yeah.
And that comes from being able to do these analyses that Faraday can do really, really fast to be able to understand your best customers.
Okay.
And then you want to find more of them, which is always the kind of age-old question. And that's why everybody goes to lead sellers, et cetera. But I believe that if you really understand the various segments that you have, you can have a much better conversation with those that you're trying to buy leads from. And then third, it's about automating all of those using data underneath all of those layers. And I think that's the place where, Faraday really can start to shine because of our ability to take all of this consumer context that is coming from all sorts of different places and combine it with the data that a client has, that a lead buyer has, to say, these are my best customers. American Standard, we were on the panel with them. It's like, we've honed a model that is specific to them. They have data about who is most likely to buy from American Standard, not who's most likely to buy a walk-in tub generally, who's most likely to buy from American Standard. And I think that's the beauty of working with, say, a Faraday, of we have that capability to make it really, really easy for you to not have to have a massive data science team, but to bring data to make it easy for anyone to have access to. And I think for so long, and I've watched it here, and it's changed over time, but people's eyes kind of glaze over when you're like, okay, data, like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
But I think part of the beauty of Faraday has made it so easy to say, okay, I just want to know a few data points about my best leads, and we can give it to them. Or I want to get way more sophisticated, and I want to say, who's most likely to buy? We can do that too. And I think that's part of Faraday's kind of evolution, has been, at our core, we really believe in matching consumers to the best products that they want to buy. And if we can be part of that matching component because you have more context about who somebody is and what they want to do next, that's where it all starts.
And when you're working with clients and you're trying to tell them, hey, look, this is what you could be using, putting the data underneath, and even if you don't have the size or your perceived capabilities, what is the number one thing that you're telling them in order to help with their tech stack in the lead generation and in their verticals? Well, how are you letting them, first off, look at their tech stack, wonder if it's too large, if it's too small, consolidation? What are you telling them?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question, because I think there was a time several years ago where there were so many, it was like, buy a software for this, and this, and this, and this, and people put together these kind of like Frankenstein things of like, this thing does, well, I'm not even sure what this does, but I was told to buy it. And I think it comes down to, you want to have a layer where you can have all of your information. We are strong proponents of a data warehouse, just one place where you have all of your context. And then you can have kind of these spokes that come off of it. And those can talk to a bunch of different pieces. But if you have that data layer, and you're able to have, say, a data warehouse, and then you can have additional context you add on. So you add on a provider like a Faraday, right? And we just sit right on top of that and can just talk to it. So then everything that fills out from your data warehouse, whether it's your voice AI agents, whether it's a lead conduit, or the way you're kind of buying and selling leads, like, it can all feed from the same data set. And so I really believe that that's kind of where clients probably need to start, is where is your source of truth? If you have your source of truth, then I think you're really setting yourself up well for these new LLMs, using Claude, using ChatGPT, whatever your kind of flavor of choice is. But I think it starts with having that strong data layer. Where is that going to come in? What data, what context, consumer context do you add on top? And then all the other pieces can kind of flow from there. But without that, it's like you're missing pieces in the whole story.
Exactly, yeah.
I think so many times that happens. People get excited about, like, okay, I'm going to go immediately into voice AI agents. And you're like, well, wait, what are they going to say?
Exactly,
well, I don't know. The data that they're built on is bad. And you kind of get this kind of crumbly foundation. So in some ways, I think it all starts with that foundation.
Okay, and then for you here, obviously you spoke on a panel. I hope you've been in the expo hall. It's nothing but conversations and things are happening in there. What, from your perspective, what have you heard? What are the conversations around the industry? And from your perspective, what's your take on where people are going, where they should be going, and where, to put those together, where do you think Faraday should go, or without giving too much away, where do you think you guys are going next?
So it feels like the conversations are getting much more tactical, which I really like, because I think by tactical I mean people at the end of the day need to convert more leads into customers.
Yeah.
And so that becomes like the main kind of flavor of conversation. I think in today's kind of world is so choppy right now. We're seeing a lot of people definitely come to us asking us for credit information. Do I know if somebody can actually finance?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and like, yes, we can help with that. More interesting conversation, I think, really becomes around not just, yes, their financial history or whatever that is, but also kind of all about them as a consumer.
Okay, yeah.
And I do think that we are having much more of that conversation today.
Do you think that when people are looking for individual information, or maybe if it's buying patterns, if it's understanding the consumer as a whole, do you think people are looking to retain or build at scale from that perspective, or is it both?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, I think right now, so we definitely see kind of two kind of divergences of like, some people are really trying to figure out what are the next things I can do with my existing customers.
Okay.
You know, how do I kind of extend the value that I'm already giving them? And a lot of people still want to find brand new people.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's always a thing that you want at a business. And I think for us, and this kind of hints at kind of where we're headed, we are realizing, you know, there's only however many people there are in the US.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you might be buying the same lead over and over again. And
Yes.
you just don't know. Like, are they ready to buy now?
Uh-huh.
And so we're spending a lot more time on historical data sets.
Okay.
To be able to say, what did Robin look like before she bought a house?
Okay.
Because I think if people can understand what their customers looked like at the time they were actually making the buying decision, the amount of data that you have to be able to help fast forward and anticipate when the next person is ready for that, I think it will be such a different conversation around using data to personalize journeys. Because if I've just done a roof renovation and you're trying to sell me on a new roof, you missed the boat.
100%, yeah.
But if I'm able to help you, because we have all this historical context, identify, here's what somebody's household looked like, their house looked like before they started getting the inkling that they wanted a roof renovation. That's when you want to try to find more people. So we are really working on some of those other disparate data sets that are kind of hiding out in other places to kind of bring them all together.
Well, that's an extreme. That's it. First off, the fact that, like you said, people are getting more tactical, but it's also understanding what's in front of you. Because if you just try, whether it be going into getting a new software or even opening up a new vertical, if you don't understand what you're looking at or don't understand the patterns, and to not look for now, but look for what's next, you can just end up, you're already behind in that point.
I think that's exactly right. Of like, it feels like on the reverse side of tactical is, you know, anticipating, right?
Yeah.
And being strategic about this next place. And I think, again, showing my data stripes, but it's like, I think it all comes back to what data are you using to start to make those decisions.
100%.
Some of it, you might have to make decisions without data, but there is typically stuff that can help you kind of identify, am I going into a new vertical? Am I going into a new space? And I think that's a place where it's exciting to see people starting to connect those dots. Because I think when I think of, you know, the kind of algorithms that we work with, the data science that we do, it is really about connecting those dots. And I think the best companies are built from doing really good dot connecting between who their leads are and who their best customers are, and how do I find more of them.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I think it's so amazing to see, first off, that you're still coming to LeadsCon, and to the fact that the conversations that are happening, whether it be in sessions in the expo hall or the conversations you're having just with regular people on the show floor, is still people trying to understand. It's good to see that people are still trying to understand new ways to optimize what they're doing, and they're still, even like you said, people are still doing things manually, but there's a lot of room for growth in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing of just like staying curious, you know? And I think on this AI human panel, we talked a lot about like, okay, what should be done by AI? What should be done by humans? And I really appreciated that, even though I think there's such a buzz around AI, that everybody on the panel, regardless of how kind of AI forward they were, agreed that these like high stakes conversations should stay with humans.
I agree.
And I love that. Because I think it means that we still have this common humanity of being like, yes, we talk about people as leads all the time, but at the end of the day, we have enough wherewithal that we want to have a great experience with your brand.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all trying to drive towards. And if we can keep that at the center, I think then everything kind of works backwards from there of like, how do you make the customer journey so exquisite, you know? And I think, you know, my lineage is coming up at Google, all these different places where it's like, I know people have data.
Yeah.
How do you use it to make the best possible customer journey? And I think that becomes the cool conversation versus like, got more leads, you know? And I think that I love seeing LeadsCon evolve to that really thoughtful conversation because it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. Well, thank you so much. Robin Spencer, Chief Operating Officer of Faraday. Thanks so much for this conversation. This was fantastic.
Thank you.